Hi, in this video I'm going to demonstrate the macro recorder in Excel, and this will allow me to record commands that I execute from the menus that I want to do in some sort of sequence in order to perform some routine task. So let me demonstrate with some actual data and you'll see what I'm talking about. First of all, if I'm going to use the macro recorder, I have to have access to the developer tab, and I believe by default Excel does not automatically put the developer tab on the toolbar. So if you don't find a tab labeled developer, then your first thing you're going to have to do is go to the file pull down menu and select options, and you'll get a dialog box. And over here on the side you'll want to choose customize ribbon, and the dialog box changes and you should see then a listing of checkboxes, and developer should show up as one of the checkboxes that are unchecked. So go ahead and click on it and say OK, and at that point the dialog box disappears, and if you look on the toolbar you now have the developer tab. Okay, so you're going to want to do that. I'm going to provide a number of formatting features to this data that you see, and this is actually some data I think that you may have seen in a previous class example, but I'm going to use it again. And what I'd like to do is merge and center a heading, maybe enlarge the font size on that main title, add some column headings, change the width of the columns so that they are optimized. Okay, so if you look at column C, for instance, we've got one value down here that's not being displayed because the column needs to be expanded. I'd like to have these last two rows, which represent summary data down here, have them bolded, and then since I'm calculating an average, it might be interesting to use some data bars and some conditional formatting so that I can see how individual values compare to the average. Okay. So these are all things that you've seen demonstrated previously. But now what I'd like to do is apply them to this set of data, and we're going to pretend then that every month we have to prepare a report like this, and that we have the same number of properties. The properties are named the same month after month, and month after month we're keeping track of the same expenses: gas, electric, water, and cable. And month after month we want to see the total and the average. So really all that changes month after month is the wording of the title and the actual numeric data in here. The formulas or functions that I use down here would remain the same. So hopefully that all makes sense, and if I'm going to be creating that data month after month, then maybe it would be nice not to have to manually format it, but have all the commands that are necessary to make it look nice recorded. Then I can put the data in and either hit a keystroke combination or just call up the commands by name and have the spreadsheet just automatically do everything for me. So if that makes sense, then here's how it's going to be done. So the first thing I want to do is highlight all the data. Okay, so I've selected all the data. I'm going to go to the developer tab, and on the developer tab I have a tool for recording a macro. I'm going to go ahead and click that. Then I'm going to give the macro a name. So by default it names it macro1, which isn't very descriptive, but I might want to call this format prop expenses or something. Okay, and we'll talk about this later on, but it is prepared to save this in this workbook. Okay, so if I add additional sheets to the workbook, it'll work on additional sheets. I can also save these macros so that all the Excel spreadsheets, all the workbooks that I might create would have access to a central library of macros. But for now, we're just going to go with the default workbook, so this will be available on any additional, these commands can be called up from any additional sheets that I might add to the workbook. And I probably ought to give it a little bit more description, so formatting of monthly property expense data includes adjusting columns, conditional formatting, dot, dot, dot. Okay, so I can make that as descriptive as I want to. Now here's where you can put in a shortcut key, and later on when these instructions or these commands are recorded, they can either be called up by making a menu selection, or they can be called up with a shortcut key combination, so control whatever I name them. Now you got to be a little bit careful here, because a shortcut key combination that I use routinely is Control C to copy, or Control X to cut, or Control V to paste. And if I were to name this Control C, Control X, or Control V, then it would, in this scope, in this workbook, Control C then would no longer work for copy, but would rather call up this macro. So this macro shortcut key that I give is going to take priority over any of the standard shortcut key combinations. So I'll name it Control P. I never use P, as in P as in property. Okay, so you don't have to use this. Again, there's a way that we'll be able to call it up from a menu selection, but I think the certification exam may expect you to know this, so you know it. All right, so at this point I'm going to click OK, and it is going to record everything that I do. Now at this point you don't have to get overly anxious. If you make a mistake, you can go ahead and correct it. It'll just record the commands that constitute the mistake, and then the commands that constitute the correction, and everything will be done in a certain logical sequence, and in the end it'll still work out fine. So what do I want to do first? One of the things I want to do is make these columns as wide as they need to be. I want to do that early on, but I think one of the things I might want to do even first is go ahead and highlight all this data right here, because all of this represents dollar amounts. And so what I really should do is apply the currency format. Okay, so we've done this before, and you see that by doing that I created an additional spacing problem within some of these columns, but that's okay. So I've applied that. If I wanted to, I could change the font color here. So maybe I want to change this to blue or something like that. I could do that. And at this point, I think I might want to highlight all the data now and go to the home page, and under the cells ribbon, choose format and then auto fit column widths. So that'll optimize the column widths. And then this is going to be a column heading. Okay, so I'm going to maybe want that to be bold, and I'll leave it in black. And the properties themselves, maybe I want them to be italicized, and maybe all this data down here I want to be bold. And then the title that's going to appear across the top, maybe I want to change that to 14 point bold, and then merge and center. Oops, I messed up, so I'll just undo that. And what I'm going to do is then highlight this first cell, drag across here, and then execute a merge and center. Okay, so things are shaping up the way I want them pretty much. I might highlight this row, the data in this row, and use a fill color here just to make that stand out a little bit more. And okay, so I said I wanted to create some conditional formatting, for instance. So I think what I'll do is use data bars here on this collection of data. Okay, so on the home page, additional formatting, I'll create some data bars, and there we are. You get the idea, and I could continue to do more, but that is everything that I intend to do now. Okay, so let me go over to the developer page and stop recording. Okay. And I kind of messed up. I should have done this earlier, but let me, having done that recording then, let me copy all this data to another page. I'll do a Control-C. I'll add a new sheet, and I'll call this, rename this formatted property data. Misspelled, of course. And then paste this in, Control-V, and then on the unformatted property here, let me go back and hit the escape key, make sure this command's turned off. And I will then highlight all this data in unformatted, and go to the home page and use the clear formats option. So that's going to do everything except make these column widths too small, and I'll just go manually tweak that. So I'm back to where I started. So I have my unformatted data, and I have my formatted data. Okay, and actually, let me go ahead and clear everything here. Sorry, this is the problem with doing this live. I don't work from a script. I just do it as I go. All right. So I have recorded this macro. All right. And now what I am going to do is highlight this unformatted data, Control C, and I'm going to copy it over here. Okay, so it is currently unformatted. And what I'm going to do then is to highlight all the data that I want to format, and I can either go to the developer page and click on macros, and I'll get a list of the macros that I have. Okay, so if I recognize them by name, then I can just click on any that are in the list and execute a run command. I'd also name that Control P. Okay, so cancel that and do a Control V, a Control P. Not sure what happened. Try that again. Control P. There it ran the macro, and hopefully that wasn't too difficult to understand. You can watch this video a time or two, and I think you'll understand what I'm doing.